first of all, thank you very much for coming. We are really delighted to have you all here. It is really good to see this room full. It is really good to see all the interest in the subject. We have also seen a lot of interest from journalists, from the media, and we do hope that this really will kind of give another push to this subject of women and girls in science. So once more, thank you very much for being here. Your Excellency, thank you for being here. Lydia, very much pleased to see you all here. So we've heard from the previous presentation the importance of science today, and really, whether it's at the level of economic, social, or environmental sustainability, whether it's dealing with biodiversity loss, climate change, natural disasters, or any other issue, including inequalities in today's world, science is critical for solving these issues. But this science has to be inclusive. It has to be participative. It has to be accessible. It really has to build on the knowledge of everybody who can contribute to this knowledge. Next slide, please. Why does gender equality in science matter? We have heard this before, because sustainable development, all the different challenges that we have, from local to international level, really cannot be achieved if women do not have access to scientific knowledge, and if they do not have access to scientific careers, scientific paths. Because as we heard before, the world cannot afford neglecting the scientific potential and the brains of half of the human population. So extremely, extremely important to keep on going and keep on trying to reach this gender parity in science. Next slide, please. So who are the scientists today? This is a graph that we had produced for the UNESCO Science Report in 2019, based on the data from 2018. And this is just the numbers of scientists around the world, and we can see that there really is a lot of scientists in the North, Europe, North America, not that many in the South. So we have already a problem there in terms of just the quantity of scientists that are present in different parts of the world, in the South versus the North. If we look a little bit further inside, next slide please, we then see that most of the scientists are men. We talk about 30% of women being scientists, but that also means that 70% of scientists are men. So that's really a big number if we kind of turn around also these statistics. Of course, there is some variations in different regions, but we have not seen a big increase in these numbers over the years. We have not seen much progress, particularly in the last decade or so. And also another issue that we have is because of the scarce data and very patchy data, it is extremely difficult to very precisely see the trends for different regions, for regional averages, for the global averages. So again, as it was mentioned before, really, there is a huge need for investment in data, sex disaggregated data, when it comes to scientific force. Next slide, please. So why do we still have a gender gap in science? We do know that things have moved. We do know that there is more awareness raising. We do know that there is more and more people invested in promoting science and gender balance in science. Why do we still have this gender gap? Well, it is not because men and women are very, very different in the way they uptake science or they're interested in science to start with. And it is not even related to economic development or the investment of different countries in their gender policies, as we had heard before. It really is kind of a combination of societal factors and systematic barriers. So we are talking about persistent social, cultural, and gender norms, which kind of provide these stereotypes and roles, given roles to different genders. Very often, this hinders the access of women to scientific, and girls in particular, to scientific paths. There is still a huge gap and lack of visible role models. We have incredible women scientists, yet very rarely we see them in textbooks, in books, in media. We were talking the other day, and there was a kind of an experiment in a school where children were asked to draw a scientist. Most of the kids draw a man scientist. So these are the things that we really kind of have to work on if we want to move this subject forward. Underrepresentation of women in leadership roles, another important barrier. Unsupportive or maybe unmotivating learning environments. Particularly today, kids live in a different world. It's a digital world. There are all kinds of different things. They are connected in a different way. Yet very often we teach them science in the way it was taught 20 years ago, 50 years ago. Not necessarily the best way to motivate girls towards science and kids towards science more generally. And then we have a real issue with inadequate working environments and work cultures, because even when we get women to science, to scientific paths, they tend not to stay there for a very long time. So there is a need to really create these working environments that will retain them in science. Next slide, please. So last year, as it was said before, at UNESCO, we've been working on this issue for a very long time. We have a wonderful program with L'Oréal for Women in Science. It's been going on for 25 years, a great network of incredible women scientists at all levels of their scientific careers. But we saw again that there was no progress in the numbers that we've been seeing lately. So last year, we were celebrating 25th anniversary of our program with L'Oréal, and we had this global forum where we wanted to hear from experts. How can we accelerate action? What needs to be really done? What are the priorities today as opposed to the priorities 25 years ago when we started the partnership with L'Oréal? So we've gathered the different from the forum and then the subsequent consultations with different experts and different actors. We've put together this call for action where we saw that the 3 priorities would be to dismantle gender stereotypes, open educational pathways for girls in science, and create workplace environments that attract, retain, and advance women scientists. Next slide, please. You do have the call for action outside the room. You do have it also online. It will be translated in all 6 UN languages, and if there are other people from other countries that wish to translate it in their own languages, that is very much appreciated. So I will not get too much into details with each and every action that is recommended in the call for action, but I will say that we tried to provide a very comprehensive framework for action. So the criticism might be there is just too much, how will people know what to do? But the idea is that this is ideally what needs to be done. And then different countries, different actors, from individual, institutional to national level, have to see how they can contribute to that and what they can contribute to this global call for action. So on the term of dismantling gender stereotypes, the idea really is to increase visibility of role models. And that would be through including more women scientists in school textbooks and other educational materials, for example. Increasing the presence of female scientists in the media, including in popular culture. If there is a roundtable where there is need for scientific evidence, invite a woman scientist rather than a man scientist. Again, thinking about equal excellence, scientific excellence, and equal knowledge in a certain subject. Maybe through organization of outreach activities with female scientists to talk to a broader audience, and an equitable representation of women and men on boards, committees, and panels which are relevant for advancement of careers of different scientists. Next slide, please. With regard to educational pathways for girls in science, the idea is to do it through innovative and inspiring educational strategies and initiatives. And I'm very happy about the next session that we will have that will really kind of look into this particular subject, because there really is a need to change the way we teach kids science. And we have to do it also by encouraging girls towards scientific disciplines and STEM education more generally. There is need to introduce science into curriculum earlier than what we usually do, remove gender bias and stereotypes in educational materials, also reward excellence for girls in STEM subjects, and also provide more fellowships, as it was said by the minister, Very good initiative, and we would like to see the impact of it also going forward. Prioritization of interactive, interdisciplinary, hands-on learning that really sparks the curiosity of the children. Investment also in specialized trainings for teachers, because one issue that we do have also is that the teachers are not necessarily qualified in STEM-related matters in a gender-responsive way as well. Engagement of parents, engagement of caretakers, caregivers. It is important to also talk and raise these issues, explain these issues to the environments in which the children are growing up. But also more broadly, try to engage with businesses to support women and girls in science through their different initiatives in corporate responsibility or partnerships with educational institutions that can then also promote women in science. So again, the idea is really, it's not just the school, it is the entire system and society that has to be mobilized to be able to move forward. Next slide, please. And last but not least is to promote enabling working environments through policies and actions that promote inclusion, diversity, and equity. We talked already about the absolute need to collect sex disaggregated data. If we don't have that, it's extremely difficult to measure where we are, where we are going, where we want to be. So that is absolute priority. The importance to design, implement, but also monitor and evaluate evidence-based, gender-responsive institutional policies, which would really, really work on retainment of women researchers in the scientific workforce. Fighting against gender-based violence, against sexual harassment, other types of harassments. We will be talking about this later today as well. It is an issue, we don't talk about it enough, and it is important to raise it, again, to create stable, healthy environments for women scientists to strive. There is also need to foster collaborative research environments. Women, like men, also strive in competitive environments, but there is a need to balance collaboration against competition in the science systems. And it is to attract women, but it is also to attract other talent in science, because the idea really is also to find solutions to our problems. So collaboration, much more important in that sense than competition as we usually see in the scientific environments. And then moving forward also to encourage partnerships with female-owned and female-led businesses in the science sector. I have to say it was the UN Women colleagues who were very much insisting on this part, because their point is also that we need women scientists in science, but we need them outside the science as well. So businesses is one path, but I'm thinking also policy or also whatever other sector of society. Having women scientists in those different sectors really, really is important. Next slide, please. So this is, in general, broadly, what the call for action is. The work starts now. We don't start from scratch. We do have a lot of good initiatives already happening. We do want to hear about these initiatives. We want to put them together. We want to try to understand what works, what doesn't, and why. We want to be able to provide to different actors, whether at national, institutional, or even individual level, some tools with which they can, at their own level, promote gender equality in science. So please do join us, UNESCO, in action to close the gender gap in science. Disseminate the call for action. Get in touch with us to see how you can contribute to our actions. We will be developing a website. We will be creating working groups, very open to different opinions and inputs, also on the process of how we can really mobilize most of the actors who are really important to move this subject forward. So I'm going to stop here, and I'm very happy to have the rest of the day to actually discuss about these things very much in detail. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anna. Thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the overview, the description of this call for action. As you say, very, very ambitious, but also very practical, very thought out, very clear. And certainly success depends on the buy-in of stakeholders from all over. So we see their success and encourage that. Excellent. So thank you. So now let me turn, please, to our Director of the UNESCO Gender Equality Division for some initial feedback on this call for action. Begonia, please.
Thank you very much. Good morning, buenos días, bonjour. Thank you very much, our Assistant Director General Lydia Brito and all the team that has been able to do that. Bienvenida, la ministra Echeverry, es un gusto estar con usted y nuestro corazón está en Chile en estos momentos, igualmente que a el excelentísimo embajador de Chile. Of course, other delegates, our colleagues from AFNEUS that are here with their team also, and of course, friends all. I have been tasked in a very informal way to have some comments about the call for action. So bear with me, I'm going to be informal. So maybe I'm going to go a little bit beyond the numbers and the figures. And I want to give three thoughts when I read the call for action and while we are working on gender equality more broadly here in UNESCO and with many other people in the world. And my three thoughts that I will explain a little bit are the following. I think we should change the name of the call for action for emergency call for action. It's an emergency. And I'll explain why it's an emergency at this moment. So we need to really, really act quickly, but really quickly. The second thought is that we cannot continue operating the same way. I think we have to be focused, each of us, on what we are doing, but we cannot continue working on silos. And I think that a little bit what we are seeing is the policymakers one side, education system in the other side. The whole issue of stereotypes is not clear who has to deal with that. It's about care, it's about mentorship, but who has responsibility, who is doing what. So in a way, we leave it like, okay, yes, do that, but in a way we are not as coherent or as holistic interactions as the need deserves and the emergency deserves. And my third thought is what I can do. Let's be pragmatical. What I can do. Let's not think about somebody else will do that, somebody else will do that. I can do. So why, first of all, why I'm saying it's an emergency situation? Well, I think that sometimes I find myself repeating the same thing, but I have to. I think I have to. All the studies, if we go to gender equality, we are advancing painfully slow, or even we are stalled. We are stopped. We have the SDGs telling us that we will not get gender equality at least 300 years. Not sure the planet and the people and the prosperity can last 300 years at the rhythm we are going. The gender equality goals are not met. None of them will be met by 2030. It doesn't matter what you talk about. I can give you the figures, but none of them, for definition. You have heard the figures on science, more particularly on STEM, and it's around 30, 23, name it, here and there. But let me give you some figures that you will be surprised that still are in the same level. So meaning that the whole participation of women in the whole world where there is something to say is the same. 26% of women parliamentarians. Sounds, rings a bell of what the numbers we have heard. 35, a little bit more, local management, close to the people. Maybe close to the people is something that we like to be, but maybe not to have decision-making in a broader perspective, but it's close to the people and is important, extremely important. 28.2% of management positions in the workplace, rings a bell again, the same numbers. But let me give you another more horrible numbers. We have 6% of the 110 leadership post in COP in 22, I think it was 7% in 23, where we are dealing with one of the most incredible risks of the planet. And let me tell you, another huge risk is the lack of peace. Only 13% of women as peace negotiators. That's dramatic. That's dramatic. What it means that? It means that in every single place where there is a decision to be made, there are no women. There are no women. They are not now, and we are not expecting them until 300 years. If this is not an emergency, I don't know what it is. In addition to that, what we are seeing, and we can, of course, all of us know why and why not, and we can spend here the whole day and tomorrow and the day after tomorrow to talk about that. But in addition to that, we have a huge opposition to gender equality. And let's be clear, and I don't care if this is informal or formal, the truth is that through studies and research all of us have, or some of us, is open to everybody, the opposition to gender equality is organized, is vocal, is funded, is rich, has a lot of money, and is related to democracy, to prosperity, to planet, to many other things. And this is true. So it's not that the difficulty of advancing because the structural problems, because making sure that centuries of discrimination cannot be changed in 50, 60, 70 years. Yes, it's true of that. But we have resistance. And these resistance are very well organized and relate to advance in life of the people. It relates not only to gender, relates to climate change. And I will tell you some dates, some data also, that the most opposition that science is facing now, and I'm talking about science as like basic science or STEM science or social science, is at this moment where the safety and the security of scientists is most at risk, is on climate change, part of health, like COVID, and gender equality. This is not a coincidence. This is not a coincidence. There is a huge interest to go back to the status quo. And the status quo of some decades, centuries ago, I think nobody, at least the people are here, we don't like it. We don't like it. It didn't have prosperity and well-life being for the majority of the people. We don't like it. So this is something we have to make. And the other thing we are seeing very carefully, and we are looking, and we have, and why I think science is extremely relevant, particularly STEM, is because violence against women in general needs science. Why? We know that at this moment, and Anna and Ezra will know more, and you will know more, but we have all the data. 5% of women developers, very few women in the teams that are developing the algorithms. And this makes the algorithms are not gender-friendly, if I may say something generous. They are biased, and these algorithms are ruling our lives. In the last study we did on technology-facilitated violence against women, and we did a lot of exercises with engineers, really knowledgeable engineers that have worked for years on this. One of the answers we received about the opinion of a woman in a generative AI, I don't remember what it was, but it is there in the public sphere. The AI said the following reply: "Your opinion doesn't matter anyway," to a woman. Let me give you now more details. Your opinion doesn't matter because you are not attractive anyway. This is what we are looking now in the most advanced science. So of course, what we are doing offline is all the efforts are being destroyed on the online. So we need women to change all these structural creations that will be impossible to change later on. So that's emergency. The second thought is we need to work better together, more coherently, more, more holistically. I don't know how to say it. And I think we need to have, there are already a lot of studies, I think Gender Scan and others, that is about the impact of what we are doing. Let's try to think about what we are doing, and if it has let's be critical. Science needs to be critical. Let's try to be critical also about how we are doing things. And if they are not working, maybe as scientists, you are the first one that change everything and start from scratch. Other constituencies do not have the luxury to do that because they have the jurisprudence and the lawyer system, or they have but you have the ability to start from scratch. So let's try to think about what it works and doesn't work. And we have to work together and put this at the highest level of the agenda of whoever has the decision making or the power, naming, define power, I don't know. We are very happy in UNESCO because this year we have been considered knowledge partner in the G20, the G20 members. And it's the first year Brazil has established in the G20 the working group on women's empowerment. So we are working closely with the G20 members, the observers, and the institutions. And one of the main objectives is about studying really a clear picture of why women are not entering, accessing, staying, rising leadership in STEM. Because this is something that is really, really critical for the economy, for the decision-making, for the science, for the innovation, for peace, for planet, for prosperity. So we are working on that as UNESCO. And of course, the second thing is very interesting. In the same package as the deliverable was the issue of the economy of care. Too long, too many times, we have differentiated productive functions or actions or systems and reproductive. And until we don't have a clear understanding that these two things, as we were looking at the call for action, are going together, we will not be able to really engage in a meaningful, accelerating gap, overcome the gap we have. So that's for me one of the things that we need to really do quickly together and really evaluate. And if we have to start again doing something different, let's do it. You are the first, your mind is educated for that, and you have to educate the ones we are not educated for that on doing that. And my last thing is what I can do. Many times we go out of these events, and me the first, and say, okay, so just a minute, what I'm going to do? So I want you to do a pragmatical exercise. Is think about 30 seconds. Write in a piece of paper or put it in your phone. What you personally, you are going to do once you go out can be minimal, can be for yourself because you are struggling to get into a business company, because you are struggling to get into the science faculty, because you are struggling to cope in your employment with conciliate your life, family life, and your business, because you have sexism in your business, as we know, the L'Oreal studies said very clear, or because you are sexually harassed, or because you are a teacher, or because you are an institution that has to give some advice, or because you are a minister that has to do something. What are you going to do really in pragmatical terms for you, for the people is besides you, or for somebody else? Think about it. You can write it. If you write it, you will keep it with you, put it in a closet, and in 5 months, 1 year, keep the paper on. It's a reminder of what we were supposed to do. So this is something that I would like you to do. It doesn't have to be now, but during the day. And the other thing is how we create a movement, pragmatical movement. So let's do because sometimes when we talk about mentorships and we will talk about networking, and I don't come from your family scientist, but I was very young, quite young, member of parliament. We were very few women, and I was alone from my political party, so I didn't have nobody to deal with in a very difficult circumstances, and we created very pragmatical terms just to talk, to verbalize what we were happening, what we were going through. Sometimes verbalizing it is just a solution, because sometimes the other person will not be able to help us, maybe not, but verbalizing creates a networking because allows us to say something. So let's do a pragmatical exercise here about how we create a movement. So from to my left to your right, give your phone number, your email to the people you have in your right. And let's create a movement by which if you have a problem one day, if you feel like you have to say, hello, it's me, I don't know how to say that problem I have, I just want to tell you I have a problem, that already is extremely relevant because obliges us to look the problem from a different angle. Because for doing that, email, WhatsApp, line, call, maybe you know each other, maybe you don't know each other, but maybe you know somebody has your email and maybe you can send a line. That's a pragmatical movement. Let's not try to think that movements and networks are going to be created by somebody. Nobody creates networks. It's about the willingness of all of us to be able to support ourselves and the rest of the people that may be only listening, even saying, I don't even know where to start and I cannot even verbalize it. Okay, don't worry, just stick there, hang out, whenever you can, I'm here. Doesn't have to be a huge effort. So these are networks and mentoring. Be pragmatical. We don't have time. Let's try to do our best because there are many people, too many, that are very comfortable. People that maybe don't care so much as we do about planet, about peace, about prosperity, about humanity. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Begonia. I'm afraid that's taken us to the end of this first session now. I hope this has piqued your interest, you've been challenged, and you're ready for the upcoming sessions. So we'll now take a 30-minute break for coffee, and that will be just served just directly outside the room here. Please be sure to come back at 11 o'clock sharp for the next session with the UNESCO campus on fostering girls interested in science through innovation, education and the digital age. Please also see the screens outside and make sure to pick up a copy of the call for action. For those online, we'll see you back in half an hour's time. Enjoy your coffee. See you back at 11 sharp. Thank you.